Welcome to Mainly Facts Weekly Compilation. Here you'll embark on a journey through captivating stories, mind-blowing discoveries, and untold tales. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and enable notifications so you never miss out on the latest episodes. Whether you're seeking entertainment during tasks or simply craving an intriguing experience, our videos are tailor-made for you. Let the adventure commence! How did the popular girl lose her popularity? Viewers Edition. Popular girls rise and fall like the empires of old, and we asked you all to tell us about the falls you have witnessed. I can hardly wait. Story 1. At my school, there wasn't really popular and unpopular, since it was a small private school where basically everyone knew each other, but there was a fine line between kids who people liked and didn't. There was one pretty well-liked 8th grader. She was friends with a lot of seniors, had a lot of friends, etc. There was also a girl in the 5th grade who wasn't as liked, but still very kind. Well, a 5th grade girl made a pretty impressive project when we had to build something/someone 5 times bigger. She built a 150 centimeter or so Minecraft Steve, and it looked great, honestly. Anyway, the 8th grade girl was angry that she was getting a lot of attention from seniors, so she teamed up with a few boys and completely wrecked her project. Tape everywhere, chipped paint, cardboard wet, ruined or gone, stuff like that. The 8th grade girl and the 2 boys were found out, and basically everyone stopped talking to the 3 of them, but it was forgotten about after a month or 2. Then an 8th grade girl joined volleyball, and her popularity came back even stronger. Back to the 5th grade girl, her parents both overdosed and were dead, so people purposefully didn't talk about parents around her. The 8th grade girl openly insulted and made fun of her during our pep rally since she was playing volleyball against the staff or something. She was ridiculed by her friends, the high schoolers dropped their connections/friendship for good, and all of that. No idea what happened after, but the 5th grade girl is now 10th grade girl and student council vice president, so that happened. To the 5th grade, now 10th grade girl, you sound awesome. Keep on keeping on and rocking in life. Don't fall into the trap of 8th grade girl. Making fun of others when you're jealous of them is the kind of bad look that catches up to you quickly. You do crap like that, and you're going to spend more and more time upset, alone, and jealous of others. It's a vicious cycle, so just be nicer. Story 3. Content warning R. Scroll to the timestamp on screen to skip this story. Story 13 reminds me of a similar story that I was involved in. In my sophomore year, there was a massive party one Friday as my high school varsity team had been beating our rivals for the football county championship, and I'd gone to this party with a few friends, and friends of friends, including a girl I knew from the church group at my high school. I thought we all had a good time until the following Wednesday she had become very distant from everybody and barely talked, which wasn't like her. I eventually found out that a couple of the football guys had drugged her, took her out to a remote part of town, and gang-R'd her. What made things even worse was she tried to report it to the police, and the school and the city council basically swept it under the rug. Her parents disowned her because she went against their strict religious beliefs, and her own church exiled her. Basically, all these people didn't think she was R'd and believed she got drunk and made a stupid mistake and wouldn't fess up to it. The story does have a happy ending, though, as I took her to my church where she got all the support she needed, and the members of the team were imprisoned for this crime. She also didn't get pregnant or contract any STDs from this, which was a relief. Shame on the school, city council, her parents, and the church for how they handled that. That is absolutely horrid, and frankly, they all deserve punishments of their own. Good on you, OP, for showing some support to someone in need. I'm glad there was at least some positivity at the end of an otherwise awful incident. Story 4. My senior year, there was this girl that moved to my hometown from California. I thought she was pretty cool and sophisticated, and she had made a few friends. A classmate of mine, a known jerk and bully, decided he wanted to date her. She saw right through him, shot him down, and told him, "I don't date jerks." He then said, "The only reason you won't go out with me is that you're a lesbian." Basically, everyone believed it. She listed the few friends she had made, and she got so much grief for the rest of the year. I tried to be her friend. We even did a school project together, but she was a bit of a bee to me. She finally told me what went down earlier in the year, the rumors about her, and she didn't want rumors like that going on about me. She got accepted to a college in California. She had a cousin or something that said she could stay with her. We graduated on Sunday, but the bullying was so bad for her that she left for KCI Airport basically as soon as the ceremony was over because her flight left later that evening. I lived in a rural community, small town, and very, very red, so a lot of prejudice to outsiders and people who are different. Story 5. I was the popular girl ever since elementary school. I suffered, and still do, from major anxiety, mostly medical anxiety from having to be in the hospital so much from a heart defect that I've had since birth. As we all know, when we went back to school, we all had to wear masks because of COVID. This mask felt way too much like the mask they used to put you to sleep right before a surgery, and of course, in the middle of band class, I got an anxiety attack because of it. My best friend, who was a percussionist, knew what was happening and tried to calm me down. My boyfriend, a tuba that was pretty close, saw my friend trying to comfort me as I breathed heavily and dropped his tuba to come over to me. The clash of his tuba on the floor alerted everyone in the room and did not make my attack any better. I couldn't get my words out, but my boyfriend realized it was my mask and ripped it off my face because I didn't have the strength to do it myself. I was getting a little better, but my friend got my stuff as my boyfriend helped me walk to the nurse's office, who gave the classic "just drink water" that she was known for, never actually helping us. I was giving a pass to stay there the rest of the day since neither of my parents could come to me, but my friend and boyfriend eventually had to go back to class. They told me at the end of the day they had been badgered with questions, but assured me that they didn't say anything to anyone except people they knew I was friends with. The next day, I was also badgered with questions that I didn't answer. I had a few other random anxiety attacks, not triggered by anything in particular, but I was known as the girl who had anxiety attacks. If I ever took a deep breath, everyone would look at me like I was about to go insane and kill them out of anger, fear, or whatever they thought happened in an anxiety attack. Anxiety attacks are bad enough without having to also worry about people judging you because of them. I'm so sorry. That sounds really stressful. But I'm glad you have friends who are there for you and can give you support. To heck with anyone who doesn't understand or judges you for it. You're still popular in my book. Story 9. Surprisingly, I used to be the popular kid in my school. I would get invited to everything and would constantly be asked or tagged along with people. I was really smart and fairly athletic. Things just started to go downhill later on when I discovered video games and this other girl who I later became best friends with. I also had an abusive mother who I kept silent about. After I discovered video games, I would quickly isolate myself from anyone and would later have social anxiety. I would also develop a really uncaring and rude personality. I would never bully anyone, but I would ignore anyone. The girl that I was best friends with would later on start rumors about me, which everyone believed since I always hung out with her back then. My mother had also grown more abusive, and my grades would face a significant flop. I was completely neglected and wouldn't get the same attention as I did before. I would never be invited, and nobody would ever talk to me. I would only get a few rude comments and would be completely ignored in PE. I later on got severe anger issues as I was lashing out at any kid I could find. I literally almost killed one of my classmates because they kept provoking me. I was effing choking the crap out of this red-haired girl. Luckily, her friend managed to stop me after frantically telling me to stop. Although I think why I lashed out at them so quickly was because I had a fever, which made my impatience completely go away. My mother only enhanced my anger issues when she would become even more abusive and almost made me unconscious. I had to go to the hospital after my mother had made me face a concussion. My dad has picked up on my mother's abuse and would divorce her later on. I got extremely depressed at that time because I was also suffering from bullying at school, and even at home I wasn't safe. My only kind of pleasure was my phone and my video games. Eventually, I got so depressed that I ended up coming up with a plan to take my own life because it wasn't worth living anymore. I was unfortunately caught, so my plan didn't work. It would then quickly spread to the school, and everybody would only treat me like crap even more. After facing through even more torment, I became apathetic, but later on had alexithymia. After facing through so much crap, I became the kid nobody wanted to talk with. I'm now non-binary and am diagnosed with schizophrenia, autism, ADHD, and alexithymia. Also, red-haired girls are fatphobic as well as a racist. She had ADHD, but she always used it as an excuse whenever she does bad things. It sounds like you've been through a lot in your life, a lot more than I or most people could probably understand, and for that, I'm really sorry. I hope you've got at least some support, therapy, and structure in your life, and that you can find happiness. You don't deserve to deal with the weights the world has put on you, but I hope you keep going. Story 10. He wasn't popular in the good way. He was the a-hole of the class, and he had a grunt. I shall name the a-hole Brad and his grunt Lemon for the sake of the story. This was in P7, 11 to 12-year-old, and I recently found out that I suffered from anxiety. On my first day, Brad kept shooting me with a ruler, but I thought nothing of it. I just thought, it's not a problem, I'll just ignore him. The second day, he overheard me talking to my friends about my anxiety/panic attacks. Then he started taking advantage of that, saying stuff like, "Look at the anxious kid. Why did you choose to have anxiety?" And more stupid stuff about how being Arrow, Ace, and being Ginger was weird. Then Lemon got in on it. Lemon wasn't doing anything that serious, mostly just, "Why were you off yesterday?" And I would just say that I couldn't make it, or it was none of his beeswax, and he eventually stopped. But Brad was kind of relentless, saying, "Anxiety isn't real, you're just faking it for attention," and some other horrible things. Then my first proper panic attack happened. This was the kind where you have trouble breathing and everything was slightly blurry, but he just laughed. This went on until Academy, 12 to 16-year-old, when we got in separate classes, and he went from the top of the school down to the lowest of it. Screw you, Brad and Lemon. Live long and suck it. Story 12. I currently go to a really small school with only about 85 kids from K to 12, and I moved last summer to a new state. There was this one kid named Todd, for the sake of this story, but not his real name, who happened to be my new neighbor. He was also new to the school and quickly became popular due to the school's small population and his incredibly funny and outgoing personality. He was the goof who was good friends with a popular girl named Stella, again, not her real name. They basically hung out most of the time and everyone liked him because he was funny, social, and outgoing. Then, Stella left the school. He didn't really have a really good friend, so he started hanging out with a whole bunch of middle schoolers/high schoolers. One day he made a comment on this one high schooler's self-harm scars and hairy arms. This person was assigned female at birth and identified as something else, but it was still a rude comment. After that, the whole school basically shunned him. A week later, she apologized and everyone went back to treating him all right, but nobody liked how he got over it so quickly and how he never really gave a sincere apology. Because people liked him less, he wanted more attention, so he would randomly go up to students during the day and talk about how he was going to a whole bunch of therapy and about how his mom was beating him. He would make offensive jokes that crossed the line just to get more attention, and since he was gay, used it as an opportunity to harass the girls. He also had an obsessive crush with this guy named Benny, not real name. He would give Benny creepy and obsessive love notes when he would politely turn him down. Finally, what made everyone angry was when he had fresh self-harm cuts on his arm and purposely showed his fresh scars to every single person he knew cut themselves, knowing that they would be triggered by it. All the middle/high school girls marched up to the principal's room and informed her about him. There were about 8 people in that room at once telling the principal about him, and the principal took 5 pages worth of notes describing everything he did. Finally, he was expelled, no one talked to him on social media, and Stella no longer communicated with him after word got out about what he did. That's a big old yikes. I mean, maybe Todd did have problems at home or whatnot, and maybe even problems with self-harm. I don't know. But if he did, he was still going about things in a bad way. Like, I hope the kid gets help and maybe gets over his attention-seeking behavior, but until that happens, probably for the best he was expelled, as others shouldn't have to deal with his crap like that. Story 14. I've always been kind of just in the middle, normal crowd, but my sophomore year of high school, it changed. What happened was that the year before, like maybe around March, 2 of my friends who are pretty popular, let's call them Lou and Alex, broke up. They were an on and off again couple, and she was very toxic and controlling and manipulative too. She went behind my back and told Alex to completely stop talking to me and hanging out with me because she didn't like it. I remember that when he dumped her the second time, she tried to get people to take her side by lying about things he'd done and making crap up about him overall. She got mad at me when I exposed her in front of everyone, and she was just not a good person anymore. She'd changed too much from before. Anyways, she'd gone around blaming their breakup on me since she was jealous that he's my best friend and he preferred hanging out with me rather than her. When we started our sophomore year, Alex had transferred to another school and we didn't get to hang out with him much anymore. But he would still regularly call and FaceTime me. Lou was mad about this and told me that she didn't feel comfortable with me talking to her ex and that she'd appreciate it if I cut all contact with him. Keep in mind, she claimed she was completely over him and stuff. I told her I wouldn't do it, and she continued to be a bee about it. Whatever. Anyway, Alex and I had something starting between us and told me he wanted to take me to his school's homecoming dance and then he wanted to come with me to mine too. So since I was still sort of friends with Lou at the time, I told her I'd be going with him. She said okay, so I assumed there was no problem. Fast forward to the dance at my school, it was like a movie moment. He danced with me all night, and during the slow dance, he pulled me in and kissed me. We basically made out during the slow dances the rest of the night. When the dance was almost over and Lou was leaving, she confronted me and told me that I lied to her based off what I said the year before. Apparently, telling her that he was my date to the dance wasn't enough for her because she didn't believe me. Anyways, after that, she made rumors about me saying I sleep with my friends' exes and that I would sleep around with just about any guy from the school, things like that. They got worse, saying things like I slept with teachers and would have intercourse in empty classrooms with other students. She made them up to try and make other people not like me, but it backfired on her because people thought they were funny and would ask me about them. I said they weren't true, and I don't know if everyone believed me, but what basically happened at the end of the day was that I got in with the popular crowd. I cut off all ties with her and ended our friendship. And when people found out about everything she did to me and Alex, they stopped talking to her. Aw, well, if you and Alex are still together, congratulations, and if not, that's okay. But that story almost sounds like it came out of a romantic comedy, one of the good ones, not one of the ones with creepy subtext. Lou sounds like someone a little too wrapped up in her own drama, and frankly, losing popularity might be good for her. Help her realize some things and maybe do some growing up. Men, what do women do that is creepy? Viewers Edition. Here on Mainly Facts, we believe that all people are capable of creepiness, and after we shared some other people's stories, we wanted to hear what you had to say. So here are your stories of creepy stuff women can do. Story 4. When I was 15, I was in a hospitality class and had forgotten to bring my ingredients to cook, so I had to sit back during class doing theory work instead of cooking. A group of girls who also forgot to bring their ingredients were also with me, talking amongst themselves, and I didn't pay them any mind. I was sitting doing the assigned questions the teacher told us to do, and all of a sudden those same girls came up to me asking questions like, "What am I doing?" Then becoming more intimately suggestive like, "Oh, do you like my friend? Do you love her? Would you have intercourse with her?" I was taken aback and didn't say anything. Then they started getting handsy and trying to touch my hair, my back, my earlobe. One even took a picture of me with her phone, I think. I just shut down and didn't speak. Luckily, it didn't escalate because the teacher and the rest of the class came back, so they stopped immediately after. I didn't know how to process what just happened, and thinking about it today was a completely gross and disgusting thing they did. Makes me so upset to think about. As a man, you're taught that you should be grateful for any female attention, even if it's harassment, so you don't question it. You absolutely do not have to accept attention and force touching like that. It is absolutely wrong, no matter who is doing it to who. It always seems like there are some bullies around that age who are pushing boundaries, but just because that crap happens a lot doesn't make it right. Folks, if this happens to you, report that to someone you trust. It is not okay, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. Story 5. The 50-50 dad who gets annoyed by people telling him he's doing a great job. I 100% agree. It's annoying as F. I took our kids to get their shots when they were babies because my wife was at work and everyone in the waiting hall nodded at me with a smile and looked at me like I was some kind of effing hero for taking my kids to the doctor. Like, what the F? Even the nurse who gave the shot commented on it twice, both times I was there with the kids. Also to girls, I've never discussed or heard any of my guy friends discuss any detail about their intimate life. Not even as teens. Like, what would we say? Describe her body? Why? We don't want to share that. That's our girl, our body, not everyone else's. I'd never breached that trust. And even if I didn't care about her trust for me, I still wouldn't do it for my own sake. I wouldn't want to share intimate details about the body I'm effing. I don't want everyone to know what that's like. That's mine. Please stop doing this, girls. Some guys might get anxiety or performance problems, or they just hold back because they don't want to try something new and be made fun of by your friends. And it'll create trust issues in your relationship. That's 100% guaranteed. So yeah, unless you want all those problems in bed, possibly lack of new experiences, and the drama that goes with trust issues in a relationship, just stop breaking his trust. Just stop sharing details about his most naked, open, intimate, and personal moments that are meant for you, his partner who he should be able to trust. And you should know what's okay to talk about publicly and not. You're not stupid. You know what you're doing is wrong. Get a hobby or go lesbian. Ugh. I mean, it isn't your body. It's hers. That's why you don't share that information with other guys, because it is her body, not yours. Now, obviously, in relationships, there needs to be understanding and communication about what each other is comfortable with, and you shouldn't break that trust. But also, plenty of people are okay with intimate details being shared and are okay with people sharing things with their close, personal friends because it can be healthy to have someone to confide in that isn't your partner. But if there are lines like you clearly have, yeah, that should be discussed in a healthy relationship. But everyone will be a little different. Trust me, I'm friends with enough people in the adult industry to know not everyone has your standards. Also, get a hobby or go lesbian? Seriously? You sound like the guy who gets left at the altar in a 90s rom-com. Story 6. There was a girl who I was friendly with. Not really close, but we talked a lot and I enjoyed her company. But another girl in her friend group started this rumor that I had a crush on her, and nobody in that group, not even the first girl herself, told me about this. When I finally found out through a long chain of people telling other people, I was hugely embarrassed because A, I hate being gossiped about, and B, I didn't want this friend of mine to actually think I had romantic feelings for her in all our conversations. I confronted each member of the friend group individually to work out the extent to which this rumor had spread, and I made it clear to them that 1, I didn't like that they were talking about me behind my back, 2, I did not have a crush on this girl and didn't want them thinking I did, and 3, I was upset that they didn't just talk to me directly about the information that, is about me. It turns out that the girl in question hadn't believed her friend's rumor anyway, phew, but I still felt uncomfortable that the idea had circulated in that group at all. As for the other people in that friend group, mixed results. A couple of them genuinely apologized, a couple tried to say the bare minimum to placate me while avoiding responsibility for themselves or their friends, and one of them outright denied the existence of the rumor even though everyone else had already told me she was part of the group. And when I told her I knew she was lying, even though she didn't have the grace to apologize for it, but she simply said, "Oh, who told you I knew?" Like, bruh, this isn't about which of your friends betrayed you or whatever, this is about me and how you just lied to my freaking face. Grow up. Girls, if you're wondering if a guy has a crush on someone, please just speak to him directly. It's far better than waiting for him to find out after the rumor has been swirling for a long time. Would you like it if the shoe were on the other foot? Rumors and gossip are a nasty thing that I try to distance myself from whenever I recognize it, but it is an insidious thing. People hear stuff like that and immediately want to talk to someone about it, make assumptions, all that crap. Might have even started with the one girl who started it just saying, "Seems like they have a crush on her," and then it got twisted and grew between each person. I would also say that at times like that, it might have been best to just talk to your friend they said you had a crush on and just say, "I've been hearing people say I have a crush on you, but I hope you know as much as I really love you as a friend, that isn't something I've really considered." Honestly, those are healthy conversations to have, as awkward as they might be. Story 7. I work in a late bar as floor staff, and in the 8 to 9 months I've been working there, I've been harassed by both men and women. Groped, touched without consent, kissed without consent, had people trying to shove their fingers up my butt, etc. It's happened so many times I've lost count, but one thing I always remember is that nowadays, if it's a woman doing it, I just try to move on and forget about it. Because I've learned from personal experience that women violating men in that situation isn't taken seriously at all. I've been laughed at more than helped whenever it happens, but only when it comes to when women do it. Then again, it's happened so often at this point that even the men doing it to me are just overlooked. Luckily, I've been able to get a new job away from all that recently, but because it isn't guaranteed to be a permanent position yet, I have to work between the two as a precaution. Wish me luck on finally being able to leave there. Story 8. As a young adult, it's sad that watching I wasn't even remotely surprised by the things being said. I've always had a good mix of guy friends and girlfriends, and our conversations are so different. Not necessarily the content, but the way things are said and the explicitness. When one of the guys finds out that another guy has slept with a girl, they'll jokingly bring it up and big them up or whatever. They might be some little side eyes and smiles if they see the girl around, but that's usually it. With my girls, however, the group chat knows as soon as they're finished effing. There's been occasions where one of the girls will send a picture or video that I'd really rather not see on to GC. Of course, I know their boyfriend-girlfriend as well, so I always find it so odd. We might go out for drinks as a group, and I have to think about how I saw this 6'3" man in a maid dress last week. This is a fair newish group of girlfriends, and so I thought it was just somewhat normal, so I would joke around about how maybe they might want to keep this stuff to themselves or whatnot, but watching this video, it's crazy how the thought that their boyfriends didn't consent to any of this didn't even cross my mind. I just thought they were kinky and were into that. And also how common it is to be violated like that as a man. Story 9. It is very educational for me as a woman. I didn't know many of these things, although something tells me it might be worse than the US. I don't know if it applies to women here in Sweden in the same way. But who knows, maybe it does. I do wonder, though, if perhaps society is more accepting of creepy female behavior since it's, let's say, a woman touches your arm, it's uncomfortable but probably not threatening. If a man does it to a woman, however, his interest might be intimidating to her from a safety perspective, depending on the context. Same if a man hits a woman, since he's in control of the situation, usually. It's typically regarded as worse than when a woman hits a man, since he can usually take control of the situation if he needs to. So I think some of the double standards stem from those differences. Plus, I think many women just have the idea that men are intercourse-crazed animals who can't control themselves, so unless she constantly keeps an eye on him, he will cheat. Ironically, though, I think that controlling behavior itself will actually drive him away, which just makes her think, oh, I knew it, and yeah, the spiral continues. As for women, complimenting is seen as less creepy. I think on average, people might assume women say those things to boost someone's confidence or to try to make themselves appear more agreeable by giving compliments, even if inappropriate. Kind of like, wow, you look so strong, you work out, right? While touching the guy's arm. In her mind, he must be so happy now, being complimented. I'm sure I've made his day. A lot of women think like this on a subconscious level. That probably seems really odd to men since they don't seem to have the same mindset. So when men say such things, people will assume he's flirting / actually intimately interested. Those are just my theories on why society might think different on these matters. However, as I'm watching this video, it becomes clear to me that many women are just creepy and act in very inappropriate, dumb ways. So just because a handful of things on the list might have explanations, it doesn't justify all of it. I absolutely agree with you. I think you've really got a lot of it right, though a lot of those are generalizations with plenty of exceptions. It isn't always clear-cut, and honestly, at times, it is a matter of perspectives, as everyone has different experiences. But there are certain things that clearly cross the lines for men and women. For all the rest, we need to use our best judgment and be open to listening to other perspectives and willing to change our own. Even me, I might be wrong about some of this stuff, and I'm happy to hear what folks have to say in the comments. Smoothest comeback line that'll work 99% of the time? Viewers Edition. Sometimes the perfect words come to you at the perfect time. We asked for your stories in the comments, and oh my, did you ever deliver. Let's hear all about your awesome comeback lines. Story 1. An old one. I was the black girl in a mostly white school in a rather rural town. To say I got bullied would be an understatement. Lots of N-words, B-words, and C-words galore, along with physical assault and destruction of property. There was one girl, I'll call her Amber, who belonged to the same church me and my family went to up there. Because her sister, a complete sweetheart, was part of the youth group, I went over to her house a lot and got to know the family. I really know the family. I learned through the grapevine that Amber's mom and stepdad, who she's known as dad almost her entire life, were going through some deep crap that would later end in a divorce and custody battle for her half-brother. At school, Amber was one of my biggest bullies, chronically accosting and harassing me, trying to cut my hair when I wasn't looking, stealing my stuff, and all of that. On one particularly heinous day, she had decided that today was the day to throw out as many racially charged words as she could at the end of class, but the teacher couldn't hear her with her posse and guy friends to back her up. Listening, unaffiliated students didn't say anything, probably due to shock and/or bystander syndrome. Normally, I would feel my anger boil and try to scramble for words to defend myself, but on that day, I looked at her, remembering the phrase, "Hurt people, hurt people." I calmly replied, "Bullying me isn't going to fix your home life, Amber." At that, she went into a fit of rage so hard her friends had to hold her back, and the teacher finally paid attention. Instead of sticking around while she called me a effing B-word in as many iterations as she could, I just grabbed my bag and left for lunch. The happy ending is that when we had an anti-bullying seminar, she was one of the many kids who gave me an apology for their behavior. I genuinely hope she's found some sort of inner peace now, but that, over a decade later, is still one of my best comebacks. Oh my God, this comeback line gave me life! Not only was it devastating, but rooted in truth and actually something this girl even maybe needed to hear. Sometimes comeback lines are super cruel and too far, but this one feels like it actually needed to be said, as hurtful as it may have been in the moment. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't help but absolutely love this one. No criticisms. A+. Story 5. One of my better comebacks came while playing in a soccer game. I despised my one coach and refused to play for a year, but he left and we got a new one I liked. I still didn't play right away because my last coach stole my love of the game, but was eventually convinced to join because I was a good defender. First game I played and I played stopper. I didn't feel bad because the guy before me didn't miss any practice, but the defensive captain wanted me there instead, so the coach okayed it. I hadn't touched a soccer ball seriously in 2 years. To play it safe and get back in rhythm, if I was ever pressured, I just kicked the ball out of bounds so as to not risk turning the ball over and just to get used to the game again. Many of the fans were telling me I was trash and saying he can only kick it out because he can't play. I played a good game after not practicing for almost 2 years, but I was getting sick of the fans. At one point, stole the ball again and sent it upfield. I heard them making snarky comments about me, such as, "Hey, you finally got it up the field instead of out." I stopped, turned, and looked at them and said, "Have any of your kids scored yet? Yeah, that's what I thought." We were up 3-0. My teammates who heard started laughing. Weirdly, the fans didn't say anything to me after that. On a side note, I think I now see why fans and coaches never really liked me. I had a tendency to play aggressive, not dirty, and get in discussions with coaches and fans because they didn't like the way I played and they verbalized it to me, to which I would respond. Ooh, getting snippy with soccer fans? A little too dangerous for my blood, but I appreciate your bravery. Sounds like you've got the makings of a regular Roy Kent, eh? I'm more of a Ted Lasso in my mind, or maybe Coach Beard. Okay, now I'm curious. Ted Lasso fans, if I were a character in Ted Lasso, any character, which would I be? Be honest. Story 9. This happened to one of my cultural exchanges for youth journalists trip back in 2018. We went to Japan for sightseeing and it was hella fun. There were 4 representatives from India and they weren't really nice to me. I got grouped with them and they weren't really happy about it. The whole point of the trip was to have an experience in sightseeing. Basically, I was the goofiest in the group. I would always test out the stuff, eat what they offered, and I would make the best out of everything. So I quickly became the tour group's favorite student. Then, one of the Indians told me that I shouldn't behave like a Filipino in a clean country like Japan. I was severely hurt by those words that I felt like crying. While on the trip, the others are just too in character and they're always taking notes on their laptops and they keep on asking questions like, when was this created? What period did this temple exist? Their curiosity was really nice, but the tour group felt like they weren't enjoying the trip. So in the end, they made us write an article about our experience on the trip. Apparently, the Indian reps made an article about the place and not their experience, so I ended up winning the big prize. Obviously, they weren't really happy, so they came up to me after the awarding and ranted at me with the strongest accent ever. Some of their lines were, "Wait till our advisor hears about this. Indian press is gonna hate you. Why'd you win? You don't even give a F about this trip." I froze, but I wasn't scared. And I don't know what went on in my mind because I was thinking about the best comeback and what came out of my mouth was 100 times better. So after the girl said, "You so unfair, B," I just said, "Can you speak in English?" And their faces were like, they quickly said remarks about me being racist, and I don't really understand anything they said, but I remember one of them yelled, "Bring your Filipino butt back to your dirty butt country." And I said, "I'm okay with that. At least I'm going to be bringing this Filipino butt back to my country along with that trophy." P.S. I got called by their advisor afterwards, and they reprimanded me real hard. I'm not sure what kind of trip this is or why someone else's advisor is calling you like that, but these other folks sound like jerks. Normally, I wouldn't be okay with folks using another group's ability to pronounce English as a source of ridicule, but I mean, you're both from countries where English isn't the main language, so I feel like I really don't have the understanding to judge on that account. And they were being jerks. Story 16. Not really a comeback, but back in school, I was in a class with a couple of friends that were a little slower than me. They were having problems understanding the lesson, and I was on the table in front of them, so I turned myself around and started helping them to understand what the teacher was saying. The teacher called my name and asked if I'd heard what she said while I was talking to my mates, and I told her I heard exactly what she said. She asked me to repeat what she said, and I repeated what she said verbatim. Her face dropped from a scowl, and she just said, "You have the most annoying habit of talking and listening at the same time." Class laughed a little, went back to what they were doing. I got away with all sorts of messing around in school because I actually got the work done. They never tried to separate me and friends because of that, even if we weren't always quiet. Story 23. Not a comeback, but just one of my favorite moments in life. 8th grade chorus class. Many annoying people joined because that year we got a trip to an amusement park, an Easy A. One time we had a sub, and this boy, who always causes trouble, starts throwing a tantrum because he thinks it's funny towards the sub. He was jumping up and down, screaming, asking the sub to take a picture with him that she didn't want to do, etc. So, not having it, I rest my head on my hand and lower all my fingers except the middle one toward him. He's turned around, not facing me, and casually scroll on my phone. About a minute later, he turns around and notices it and points at me, screaming, jumping up and down, and says, "She's doing the middle finger to me." I can't help but smile, but the best part is when the substitute pretends not to see anything and asks him one more time to go sit down, he finally does. New second favorite substitute, and the praise I got from my friends was amazing. Definitely one of my favorite memories. What messed up thing did your school do? Viewers Edition. Story 1. So, for context, I went to schools meant to support autistic children after I was diagnosed at 5, I think. I just knew I was diagnosed at an age around 5. I don't remember those details all too much. Specifically, when I was facing anxiety and stress, I try to walk away. No warnings, I just get up and try to leave. When I do this in the classroom, the teachers, TAs, and some other category of authority would invade my personal space and try to stop me. While one would think, why not just talk it out, I was having a borderline panic attack. Not the kind where you hyperventilate, but the kind where you feel like some coil is around your throat and preventing you from talking. So I wasn't a very communicative person, just wanted to leave. Since adults were actively invading my personal space and trying to restrain me, I'd get more erratic and try to defend myself, of which later would be labeled as my anger issues and violent tendencies. They'd throw me in those sensory rooms, which felt more like a white room. This was pretty persistent up to middle school, and mandatory therapists and other therapists hired by my parents would just try different medications, which amplified my already existing issues, making everything harder to control. I felt a lack of control over myself. The coil became tighter, and everyone just kept telling me, "Why didn't you say anything? Maybe if you had communicated what you need," since all they saw was anxiety, and that was all in your head. After being kicked out of a few schools for becoming too rowdy and always hearing the "I only want to help you" or "We're not like your other middle schools" from, well, other middle schools, I was either having depression or one incredibly long depressive episode. I'd be left in that white room for hours, and if I so much as tried to walk away. So yeah, I'd get panic attacks pretty often, developed a phobia of those sensory rooms, and when I was facing a panic attack or PTSD, everybody's solution was those sensory rooms. I've been physically pinned to walls and the floor by 5 adults bigger than me, telling me to calm down while they were pushing my limbs into the ground. Actually, I discovered I have some skin issues I don't remember the name of, since the rug burn and stretch marks from the floor haven't faded for over a decade. I want to say this was only at one school, but I've been to several middle schools and high schools that have all done this. I've even had certain people through supportive living services tell me that at least my parents gave them enough of a damn to try to help, when the help felt like hell. Or some said that other people have it worse, or imagine your life but worse, and I wish I had your life. Personally, I felt like I wasn't even alive for most of my life. I'd usually like to say I was actually born at the age of 18, since it was only after I was an adult those academies legally couldn't hold me anymore. After that, I was able to stop taking the meds without someone threatening to make me swallow. I didn't want any more therapy, so I mainly watched YouTube videos on how people deal with similar issues. For me, that was enough. Still, under supported living services, I eventually met some good people. I'm not sure if this counts. Well, I felt that I needed to text this anyways. Who knows? Maybe someone will feel slightly less alone for it. Wow, that's a lot to have to go through and be put through as a kid, and all of these people thinking that they know what's best for you, but not listening to you. And that's really, really frustrating, I would imagine, you know? I mean, it's one of the things when you're finding a therapist, you want a therapist who doesn't ignore the stuff you're saying and just try to be like, oh, this is your problem, this is what you need to do, you know? Oh, if you don't like it, just wait it out or whatever. That sucks for smaller things, like the little nonsense that I deal with. It's not nonsense, I shouldn't dismiss it. But still, for dealing with the amount of stuff you're dealing with people pinning you down and all that stuff, having them not listen, I am really sorry. And I think it's something that therapists, a lot of them have been getting better about in recent decades, but there are still a lot who are kind of old school with this I know better than you, just be quiet kind of mentality, and I'm sorry. Story 2. During a physics class, the teacher decided to give us a trust thing. So basically, it was done in groups of 2. One student had to close their eyes while the other guided the student around safely. But there were a few problems with this. We could use the entire field and technically go wherever we wanted in the school grounds, for one, so how could the teacher see if anything was going wrong? Secondly, I had autism, but hadn't been diagnosed properly yet. And because the other student could tell something about me was different, they didn't really like me. And I was very unpopular because I was different. When it was my turn to close my eyes, I was instantly taken to the back of the field, and the person who was supposed to help and guide me asked me to climb these steps. In this school, there was a basketball course at the back and this wooden platform where mothers and so on would watch people play basketball. But because my eyes were closed and I had something around my face to keep them closed, I didn't know. But I was told to go up and up. Suddenly I got this feeling that something was wrong, very wrong. I knew it was against the rules, but I decided to have a very quick look and open my eyes enough just so I could see where I was. That was when I stopped going up and said no every time my friend told me to go up and assured me that it was safe. By then I knew exactly where I was, and I knew that the next step was non-existent. If I took that next step, I probably would have fallen the height of maybe a 2-story building. Next thing I knew, I heard this big "ah" and realized that there was a bit of a crowd. A crowd of students who obviously knew what was going on and probably had helped this person I thought I could trust plan this whole thing. But at least I survived that experience and walked away without any broken bones. I am now in my 30s. I don't trust people very easily as a result. I find I trust people who are disabled like me a lot easier than other people. The thing I'm wondering is how old were these kids when this was happening, because that's horrifying. This feels like something that would be in grade school because, boy, grade school kids can really just be monsters sometimes. I'm glad that you're okay, and sadly, I really can't blame you for not trusting people that easily. Story 3. Boy, I've been waiting for this. So I had a Satan-like teacher in 4th grade. Her name was Miss Wow. I don't care to hide her name. So I have autism, and 4th grade, my mental state was horrible. I had a grandma die that year, and my parents fighting, so to the story. Basically, I would sleep in class because I was a heavy insomniac due to suffering horrible depression, anxiety, thoughts of taking my own life. Remember, I was 9 to 10, and before you say this is false kids, can't get depressed, BS, I remember it was due to my family member passing. I was having hallucinations, and my family was fighting, so yeah. Okay, so there's multiple stories, so I'll include them all. Story 1. So I'm a shy person because of my spectrum on being autistic, so I was reading silently while a group was talking with me reading, so here's some extra info. My voice is very cold and monotone. So I started speaking out of my head, reading the story. I usually read in my head. But she pulled me into the hallway and yells at me how I'm rude and disrespectful. I was on the verge of crying because I have bad trauma with being screamed at. Story 2. I'd gotten COVID. I had it twice, so at this point I'm healthy and probably immune. So of course this was during the outbreak, so as instructed I had to stay home for 6 months, I think, and this D-head of a teacher got mad at me for it and didn't say anything, but in my head I was like, so you want this deadly virus on your hands? It was required I stay home so no one else got infected. Story 3. I missed school for a while because my grandma had passed and my teacher got mad at me for it. What the F? Why is it my fault? Story 4. She made fun of my worst fear of being stared at and had been mocking my low vision, probably legally blind without glasses. Story 5. She lashed out at me because I wouldn't eat because I was tired and didn't feel like eating. She finally made me cry that day. Story 4. 2 things happened for me. First off, in elementary school, there was this one day that every 4th grader had to do. My elementary school was kindergarten to 4th. It was called Etiquette Day. Because of my father's military presence, I lived in the middle of the Bible Belt, Arkansas. Each boy was paired up with each girl to be their date for the day, and we wouldn't know who would get paired with who until the day right before. We all waited patiently that day before to find our partners. I had no male friends at the time, but there was this one guy who had a major schoolboy crush on me that I did not want to be paired with. However, our teacher knew he liked me, so she paired us together. We ended up dating from 5th to 8th grade, so I don't blame her. On the day, we were told to wear formal clothing and pose for pictures in what I am certain was the prom picture backdrop for the high school. These pictures were taken by my best friend's mom, who knew of my situation and made sure to squish me and my date close up to each other. The day ensued with proper chauvinist etiquette that my date took my heart. I knew that it was all wrong and made a scene of how I could carry my own stuff, open my own doors, etc., etc. Then they got to the "a woman can't have more power than her husband" crap, and I lost it. I'm very surprised my date ended up dating me after that. Second, 8th grade now, I have this history teacher who I will never forget. Her teaching style was great, and I did really well in her class, but it was her that bugged me. People can have strong opinions, and even if they're different from mine, I don't care so long as they keep them to themselves like I do. She didn't do this. Her opinions were the exact opposite of mine, and it physically hurt me anytime politics came up. Not only did she do this, but she also believed in many conspiracy theories. It was towards the end of the year, and I was very excited to be done with her. We were in the Holocaust unit, and she was telling us about how Jewish people had to wear a Star of David patch on their clothes. She then went on to compare this to how you have to show a COVID vaccination card to enter some restaurants in some countries. She then went on to explain how COVID is a hoax, yada yada yada. I had a Jewish friend at the time, and while we were all outraged by her comments, none more than him. He was shaking with anger, and though he's a very calm and collected person, I don't know how he kept his mouth shut. I had another friend in that class who debated on every comment she made, and none more than this one. Anytime Mrs. Insane Conspiracy Lady knew that my friend had her beat, she'd just say, "We're running out of time," even though it was 10 minutes into the 50-minute period. I know these are long, but I've had to rant about them for so long. Well, I'm glad that you did rant about them because, man, I would need to get that out as well. As far as the whole first part with the, paired up dating in 4th grade, that's weird. But let's move on to Insane Conspiracy Lady because, wow. Look, I'm all for having discussions and debates with people of different political ideas. I don't want to have too myopic of a view, I want to know what other people are saying. I want to be able to digest that and to have educated discussions. But a teacher telling students that COVID is a hoax and comparing it to the Holocaust, that's not a discussion. That's ridiculous. And clearly she's not willing to have a discussion because she's shutting students down. Oh my gosh, this is too much. Story 5. Here's one from my elementary school years. I was in 1st or 2nd grade at the time, and I was one of those IEP students with anger issues, which kind of plague me to this day, though not as bad as in elementary school. It was also the first time my stepmom, who was a lot nicer to me when I was younger, was in the state I lived in. At the time, she did not live with my dad or live in the U.S. But like always, I began acting up in school. I don't remember what helped cause it or why I acted up. So they didn't know what to do with me, as all other punishments had failed and the vice principal at the time didn't want to involve the principal, who later on in my life after I graduated was arrested for something. So they literally tied me to a chair and left me in the office with the door supposedly locked. How could I check if I'm tied up? And while they called up my dad about me, of course, both of them were peed about my behavior, but my stepmom was especially livid with how the vice principal handled the situation. And after that incident, I didn't see that vice principal again, and I was brought up to the principal every time I did act up. The principal and I did become fast friends, however, in my elementary school years, considering I was able to convince him to talk to the board of directors for a new playground set, which somehow worked wonders, as it actually happened. Weird story to brag about. When I eventually got to high school, my PE teacher was his wife, and we also got along very well. After I got out, though, the principal was arrested. I don't even remember the crime, but both me and my dad were saddened by it, knowing he could have done better than that. What's something you stumbled upon that made you nope the F out? Hackers, Viewers Edition. Now, apparently, some of you fancy yourself hackers and have come across some not-so-great stuff. Let's hear what you were saying in the comments. Story 1. When I was 13 or 14, I ended up winning a Minecraft account in a giveaway. It was a college-aged woman about, 9 to 10 years older than me. Her mistake was putting the same password or very similar passwords, which I easily figured out, on almost every account she had on the internet. Minecraft, Google, Twitter, Facebook, and Amazon. That Amazon account had the woman's card and her mother's card on the account. I had her address and card information and date of birth, etc., from all these different accounts on the internet. Basically everything but her social security number. And as a young teenage boy with no money, I sat there staring at that Amazon account info page for probably 20 whole minutes, fighting back and forth in my mind if I should order something cool like a TV or console with one of those cards and deliver it to a different address that wasn't my home. Didn't have any specific ideas because I was still fighting myself on if I should even do it at all, so they wouldn't trace it back to me. And I might have been young, but I was old enough to realize that it wouldn't be hard for police to find me if they wanted to. My plan wasn't actually that clever, so I decided to make a post on her Twitter saying something like, "This account has been hacked. To anyone who reads this, don't use the same crappy password on all your accounts. I'm now logging out of all accounts," or something to the same effect. But either she had already changed her Twitter password, all of this happened over the course of like 2 days, or I decided against it so as not to cause a panic or something. I don't know. This was a long time ago, so I logged out of all those accounts except for the Minecraft account, which I had already changed the username, email, password, date of birth, and security questions for, and noped out of there. When I checked a couple weeks later, all of her passwords were changed, which I was happy about. Hopefully she picked a better password. Okay, here's the thing. Long passwords are the best passwords. The longer they are, the better. Just a combination of random words and numbers that fill up enough space. A good way to do this is to just take the URL of the website and use that as like a cipher. So if the first letter in the URL is an M, that might always equal the word pillow. And then the second letter of the URL should be associated with a number. The third letter of the URL should be associated with a different word, and so on until you have a password that's like 15, 20 characters long. But then you also will always remember your passwords because you have your own personal nonsense cipher connected to letters. I don't know, it's just way easier that way, I think. Story 10. Something in this made me think of an old book I read, The Hacker Crackdown. After a big disruption of phone service on a holiday, an FBI team was formed to hunt hackers. P.S. That phone problem was actually a glitch in the new phone servers. The phone company told everyone that, but none of the politicians understood one word of the explanation and insisted it had to be hackers. Anyway, the FBI thought they had a major catch when they caught a hacker who had stolen a phone company document and posted an edited version on a social media site. It's amusing to note that the document had nothing to do with hardware or software. It was entirely bureaucraty's surpassing opacity, as the hacker said on that site. It could hypothetically be used for social engineering if a hacker wanted to pretend he was a phone company employee. The company claimed it was worth $70,000, an absurdly inflated figure that included the cost of the mainframe computer and the monthly salaries of all the employees. But the hackers' lawyer gunshot their case and left the FBI's credibility in tatters, in the words of the book's author, when he pointed out that anyone could use the phone company's free catalog to buy the exact same document unedited for $13. I don't know. I mean, first off, how could anyone believe this story? The government not understanding technology and the internet? I don't believe it. The government's always on the cutting edge and certainly doesn't ask amazingly stupid questions when it comes to anything related to technology. Nope, that's never happened and never will happen, and I will eat my hat if someone can prove otherwise. I gotta get rid of my hats. Story 11. The worst one for me was Cicada 3301. It actually led to me destroying my phone, microwaving my computer, and moving to another state where I wouldn't touch a computer or any kind of social media for 5 years. This happened around the same time as when disbanded anonymously due to being heavily infiltrated by federal agents. Thanks, Sabu. Not to mention, after OP, ICE, ISIS, I received a strongly worded warning from the DoD and NSA. Thanks for the patch, by the way. Essentially a thank you, but do it again and you go to Gitmo. I still don't know what the end game of 3301 was, but we agreed it wasn't the feds. I was fully aware of the kind of damage that could be done using technology, as that's what we specialized in. I was paranoid and had to disappear for a while. To this day, I try not to get too involved in any of that stuff, not to mention after 5 years away from it, I'm completely out of the loop anyways. Story 27. Hacked my high school's Horizons system. Not really hacking. I opened a terminal, navigated to the shared network driver, and found a file in the root directory called pwbat, opened it in a text editor, and was able to see every username and password that had access to the system. Then I used those credits to download the picture of students I didn't like and used MS Paint to very poorly add facial hair, scars, and black eyes, then re-upload them to the network. I would have gotten away with it if I hadn't left the files saved in a folder on the desktop. But hey, I was only 14. Yeah, you say not really hacking, but then you also say a bunch of technical stuff that just left me very, very confused. I'm old enough to just say, yeah, that's hacking. Oh God, am I the old, outdated politician who doesn't understand technology? Oh crap. Story 28. In high school, all computers had 3 accounts: student, password student1, teacher, password teacher1, admin, password admin1. Yeah, didn't take long for us to realize we could log in as teachers, and then I myself went a step further. Admin account accessed, and the first thing I saw was a program called Secret Cam, and upon clicking it, showed a view from a hidden camera in a girls' changing room. The school had 2 gym classrooms with a set of changing rooms each. I noped out of that account by shutting off the PC, but later on, outside of class, with no teacher supervision and only 2 friends with me, I went back on there and we made a video recording of the login as well as the camera. Then, with the recording, we went to the police station after school to report it. Principal was fired the next day, as well as some of the teachers. The video recording was played for all classrooms, and that was that. Except that they never changed the passwords, and not even a week later, I was back on the admin account, just goofing around. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.